Good morning, or whenever you're watching this video. The goal for today's lesson is to be able to describe life before farming. The learning target coincides with your mastery check, meaning the goal for the lesson is what you'll be tested on. So that goal will be the same high points questions on your mastery check. If you can't answer the learning target, you're not ready for the mastery check. Again, look for the answers in the video. What was life like before farming or during the prehistoric and Paleolithic period? Today, you will learn about what life was like before farming was discovered and how people lived and survived in prehistoric and Paleolithic times. All right, you should have your notes. They should be in 1A, in file folder 1A. Once you've grabbed your notes, make sure your name and period are on your paper. Your notes are Cornell style. That means there are questions on the left and your answer will be on the right. The lines represent how much should be there. So if you see 3 lines, your answer should take up 3 lines. All right, so on the screen you see 2 time periods, BCE and BC, and then you see CE and AD. So BCE is before Common Era. If you are religious, then you would call it before Christ or BC. In the BC era, time moves sort of backwards. So 30,000 BCE would then give way to 29,000 BCE, which would give way to 28,000 BCE. CE or Common Era can also mean AD or Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord, if you are more religious. And of course, Common Era is allegedly when Christ was born up until now. And so it starts with 0 when he was allegedly, or around the time he was born, and then it moves forward the way our years currently move forward. So from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, from 2023 to 2024. All right, critical thinking. What time period are you in right now, CE or BCE? Make sure you answer on your paper. This question should be on there somewhere. The next critical thinking question. If the year is 7000 BCE or BC, what will the next year be? Written documents date back thousands of years. Historians have been able to read through these documents to piece together information about ancient civilizations' beliefs, activities, and daily life. But what about a time before written history? Meaning, what did we do before we could write down things, before we even knew language or writing? Historians call this prehistory. A way you can remember that is history means basically writing down the past. So prehistory is before you could write down the past. So on your notes, you'll write the time before people invented systems of writing, or what you see on the screen in the black. So your question asks you what is prehistory. You can write what you have here in the black, or you can write the time before people invented writing. Most of your answers will be on the screen, but some won't. Some I will say, and some are just critical thinking. Archaeologists find and analyze the material remains of human cultures to learn about prehistoric people and to add to the written records of historical times. Archaeologists study artifacts, which are objects made by human beings. Artifacts include tools, weapons, pottery, clothing, and jewelry. An example of an artifact from today might be your cell phone, or your comb and brush, or an iPad, or a notebook, or a test. By analyzing artifacts and other items, archaeologists draw conclusions about the beliefs, values, and activities of our ancestors. But what happens when we study a time before writing? How do you do that? One way to do that is through radiocarbon dating. All living organisms absorb radiocarbon, or C14, which has a half-life of about 5,730 years. A half-life is a period when the amount of something decreases by half. For example, how long would it take for a full glass of water to evaporate until it's half full? If the answer is 2 hours, then that's the half-life. During its lifetime or our lifetime, an organism continually replenishes its supply of radiocarbon by breathing and eating. After the organism dies and becomes a fossil, radiocarbon continues to decay without being replaced. Since it is radioactive, we know the rate at which it decays. Scientists measure the amount of radiocarbon left in a fossil and can figure out how many years it has been since it was last replenished. They subtract that number by today's date, and we have the age of that artifact. So, for example, pretend we find Otzi the Iceman with 514 C14s of radiocarbon in his body. Pretend 514 equals 1,400 years of unreplenished radiocarbon. Take the current year, which is 2023 at the time of this video, and subtract 1,400. That would make Otzi the Iceman dying about 623 CE, or Common Era. Most recently, DNA analysis has shown that humans and Neanderthals mated and had offspring. People today who are not of African origin have anywhere between 1.5 and 2.1% of DNA from the Neanderthal. By the way, Otzi the Iceman was an actual person who was born about 5,300 years ago. And so, or a little over 5,300 years ago. And so he was born around 3,309 BCE.